you can take over, sir.
So fine, I'm available. You can tell me when to start.
Good afternoon and welcome you all for the journal series. And today's topic is on engaging with Scopus and Web of Science academic repositories for the purpose of literature review process. We shall start the session with prayer. So today we have with us Dr. Venkatesh, who is Assistant Professor in Symbiosis Institute of International Business, Pune. And thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and being present to discuss on the academic repositories like Scopus and Web of Science. He is a member of Project Management Institute, and he has done his MCOM and PGD BM, MBS, and he has completed his NET in management. He is interested in research studies in lean and agile supply strategy. He is very much into this agile technology and supply chain management. He has 2.5 decades of industrial experience and almost a decade of teaching experience. He has been teaching subjects like supply chain management and advanced supply chain management courses for MBA program. He has a list of research publications in reputed national and international journals. He has edited many book chapters and reviewed research articles and book chapters. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And the session is over to you to discuss on the repositories of Scopus and Web of Science for doing a literature review.
So, namaskaram. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd say namaskaram, vanakkam, and warm welcome to each one of you. I won't say much about myself because already the introduction has been done. Much more than that, I started my career with the Indian Air Force. I was a soldier with the Indian Air Force, and I'm an air veteran. And almost in 2003, I retired, and then I came into this education industry. While I worked at different places, but somehow research has been an interesting journey along with academics. So one side, while we have teaching, we all do understand that research is also a very important aspect of our lives now. And as part of this lecture series journey, first of all, I think today I'm here to take you all on an online research journey involving the literature review processes and using a couple of reputable academic research databases especially the ones like the most known as the Scopus and Web of Science, in addition to the other databases. But then we'll concentrate on Scopus and Web of Science. But before I start this, I would like to thank Dr. Padmavati ma'am, the principal, Dr. Lakshmi ma'am, and Dr. Deepa, with whom I've been interacting about this engagement as part of the FTP series at Shasun. Of course, we are online, but it would have been nice if we would have been a physical mode and then interacting. Okay, everything is fine. So I sincerely thank all of them for providing me this wonderful opportunity to share with you, all esteemed audience, on the theme of interest that we want to discuss on today. So I would also like to welcome you all on board, faculty, colleagues, students, researchers, whoever is on board. So welcome. So shall we proceed ahead now? Okay, so what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing my screen. Even though I didn't actually plan for a presentation, but I thought I'd give some pointers based on which we can go in a particular flow. So first, I'll be sharing my screen in terms of a small PPT, but actually I'll be doing a hands-on engagement with the database repository so that we understand how to really engage with the database and do what we are interested to do in research. So I would like someone to confirm if you can see my screen so that I can.
It is visible, sir. It is visible.
Okay. So I put it on full mode. Yeah. So today's topic that we would be interested on is how do we use the database. While there are many databases, we'll talk about Scopus and Web of Science academic repositories and how to use this particular resource in terms of undertaking a literature review process. So while it will help you across the journey of research, but we just want to focus on one area, and that is about the review of literature, or not only review of literature, but I would also say writing a review paper, an article, which we call as a systematic literature review. So proceeding ahead, we should actually first what I'll do is I'll set up how are we going about. To start with, I'll be discussing about the review of literature as a concept and what do we understand by a systematic literature review, and how does the concept of the PRISMA statement or any such models help us in performing or engaging for a systematic literature review. Then what I will be talking about is the reputable databases. Especially, I'll just limit to Scopus and Web of Science because of the paucity of the time that is available to us. And then, of course, you would also be knowing about few other databases which are also good, but it would be better to work with Scopus and Web of Science as on today. After that, I'll give you a short engagement with Scopus database based on what we are interested to know about from the database, and what would be the start and the flow and the end where you can really engage with it and extract useful knowledge or content that can help us in building our review papers. And while Scopus and Web of Science are two large databases, engaging with Scopus, the process will already set you into tone for engaging with Web of Science because they're almost similar, except that the kind of content or the journals that are indexed are slightly different. In a brief understanding, the Scopus is more a repository about papers on humanities or social sciences. I would say a little bit far away from the pure sciences. Of course, there are papers which are indexed in both, that is the Web of Science as well as the the Scopus database. So any paper that is there in Scopus need not be in Web of Science. However, most of the Web of Science papers would be available indexed in Scopus as well. So Scopus seems to engage not only the social sciences and the humanities, but also part of the sciences. So that's how, if you understand one of them, I'm sure that all you just need to know is how to log in into the other portal and extract or engage with it. So that's it. And finally, I think we'll go with 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer session where if you have any brief questions, I would like to address them. So to start with, let's understand what are we talking about when we say literature review. So the term literature itself, we will understand that it is some kind of knowledge, some kind of document, some kind of books or maybe journals or papers or anything that helps us as a literature, as a source of data, information or knowledge on a particular topic of interest, on a particular domain, on a particular subject area. And then we want to understand what is the literature talking about. Literature is what we call as a document, a recording of what has happened somewhere in the past. They are all available in some of the other documentations. And this literature is one of the primary inputs or sources which we can use to understand what has happened in the past. What is the kind of scholarly work that has happened over there? Who has done it? What has been done? And then probably that can serve us to understand what is the existing body of knowledge. And from there, we can find out if there are some gaps in the existing knowledge and to relate to the kind of or the topic of interest that we are interested in and see if there is any gap on which there's still work to be done. And that is an opportunity for us to go ahead with that gap and maybe work on it and publish as our work. And that's how we will be contributing to the existing science or the body of knowledge. And that is what researchers are supposed to do. So understanding this background, a literature review is more of the scholarly work, a paper or article, journal, whatever it is. And while decades ago, people used to engage in the libraries, so they used to go and search out for some books or some literature that is available in some large repository, not the online, the physical one, and then read through scores of papers, try to understand and note down few points, and it was a very tedious thing. But then research happened centuries ago also, and now we have moved into engaging with more of technology prowess, and technology has come to our assistance along with the applications and databases which help us as a reservoir, as a source to really dig into what we want. So these large databases have built over a period of a few decades and adding to a lot of research work and other literature. And now it is large enough that we can engage in, I'm sure when you engage with these databases, you will find almost a quantum of work done on the topic of interest. That doesn't mean that the topic that we are interested, you'll never find a paper. I tell you, while people initially feel, researchers initially feel that, oh, the topic that I'm looking for, when I search the database, there's no paper. This is a very common thing which normally any researcher in the start of the research journey find it, and they report in this way. But then I'm sure there is some problem. They have not engaged in the way it is required to explore. Maybe they have not used the correct keywords, or maybe they have not looked into the particular resource critically, and maybe they superfluously they have seen and they think okay, there's a lot of work to be done, there's nothing done on this. But that's not the real scenario. If you really have a systematic way of doing it, and if you dig into, you will find a lot of information and existing literature. But then we need to understand how to fit our work based on the gap that is available in the existing studies. So that's how the literature review process helps us to build, our work based on the gaps that are existing. So the points that I've listed is it's more of a discussion on the background, the seminal work, the initial work that has been done, some sources and research questions that are, that could be found, or maybe we want to address our research questions and find out based on my research question, is there an answer in the existing literature? And if there is a gap, can I work on my research question further and expand the knowledge? So I'm sure that situating your own work in relation to the existing body of knowledge is one of the major ways where we can really engage with our research work. So demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the existing academic literature and the processes is itself what we call as the process of literature review. So I hope with this, if you could understand that literature review means we need to look out for existing literature and then maybe critically evaluate what's there and what's not there, find a gap, and then check out as to how you would engage and work further. So to set the tone, there's a difference between just talking about literature review and when you talk about systematic literature review. So when we write research papers, I would suggest that you must talk about systematic literature review, because when we say systematic, it means there is some systemic of flow or maybe a sequence of activities that you need to do. And when it is more scientific or systematic, then the research community or maybe the people who are consuming your knowledge will say, yeah, this is somewhat genuine, this is somewhat scientifically proven, tested, something like that. So systematic means engaging in a very, very systematic scientific process. So if you see the definition, one of the definitions talks about that SLR, the systematic literature review, is the process of identifying, selecting, and critically appraising or evaluating research, so that you can have a clear understanding of what's your research question and is there a gap, and then you can engage with it. So when we engage with research, we also need to understand what kind of research we are doing. So if you ask the researchers, they'll talk in a different way. When you talk to students, they understand research in a different way. But let's understand the proper research that we are talking about. So research can be something what we call as primary research, or it could be something called a secondary research. Just to differentiate between primary and secondary, primary is when the researcher has a topic of interest and a research question to address and uses one of the ways of primary research to collect data or information. So normally primary research would involve the researcher engaging with the respondent, where they might go into the field, talk to the respondents, seek an interview, or maybe get a questionnaire filled up, or maybe undertake some group discussion and so on. So there are different ways in which primary research data can be collected. So if you are able to go engage with the participant, with the respondents, and collect required data or some kind of inputs to your research, that is primary. But when you talk about secondary, now this is more of what we call as research which has already been done, some part of the research which is already done, and it already exists in the repository or in some journal or maybe in some reports, whichever document or resource we can talk as secondary. Secondary means it is already existing. We need to work further on it. You can use the earlier done work and expand it further. So literature review is more of looking into what has been done. So we should say that more of secondary data is being used to understand what has already been done, the existing body of knowledge. So that's why literature review normally engages with what we call as the secondary data. But to explore this further, to do your research, you also need to engage with what we call as primary data collection and then work further. Now, SLR will support you to understand what is there existing in this body of knowledge and what are the gaps and what we can do about it. So literature review is the past knowledge, the questions like what has happened, who has done it and all, and then to identify, is there any gap or is there some work which has not been done? Once we understand this, we can relate to our research question and proceed further. So now with this discussion, I hope you must have got some understanding about the literature review and what is the systematic literature. So to put it short into the bullet points, as it is, I'll be giving you the presentation so you can use it. But just to give you a short understanding of finally, what is this SLR? So you need to extract some, basic understanding of what is existing by using certain keywords on the topic of interest. So select a keyword set, say 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I would suggest 5 to 7 keywords should help you to explore what's the study that's existing in the field of interest, in the topic of interest that you're interested in. So once you know your keyword, you can just search the database by entering the keyword and then finding out what are the existing studies. So once you read that, you can start coding it using certain protocols, using certain criteria to say whether the study which is existing, is it relevant to the topic of interest or maybe to the research question that you're addressing. So if you're able to understand that, then you will say, okay, this particular research article or a particular paper seems to be useful to what I'm studying. So you can either include it or use certain criteria to say, okay, this is totally irrelevant to what I am doing, while the keyword is there in that particular paper, but the entire topic of interest is totally different from what I'm doing, and you can straight away go for exclusion. So categorizing the extracted articles and then coding it, or maybe finding some kind of similarities, commonalities, and checking out for what kind of themes they have worked on and does it suit us. Once you understand that, you can interpret the existing studies and see if it relates to my research question that I'm trying to address, and identify what are the gaps, what are the similarities, contradictions, or maybe to understand what does the existing study inform us. So based on this, I would say, okay, there's a gap, I need to work further. And then I would also like to do a work which makes some sense of the research investigation that I'm engaging with. So I hope this process is a very, very required, is one of the important sections in any research article that we publish. And reviewers certainly would check out for, have you done an investigation into understanding the existing body of knowledge? Did you really find out a gap in the study, not from your bias as a researcher, but from what is the literature talking about? If it says there's a gap, you can try to understand, and if there is a gap, you can work on it. But it's certainly in research, copying others' work or maybe claiming others' work or reinventing the wheel in the same way, it doesn't work. I mean, it's not your contribution. So if you want to avoid all this, you need to undertake systematic literature review or review processes and make sure that there is a gap and work on this gap. Now, what I'll do is on the screen, I'll just give you a brief flow of what do we mean, what are we supposed to do when we say I'm going to do a systematic literature review. So if you see the flow, I've got this from the internet resources, but this flow I don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's already existing there. So I hope that the stepwise process will help us guide as to what we need to do step by step, what first, what next, and then how do we, engage with these processes and complete our literature review work. So if you see, initially I told you, you need to have a keyword on the topic of interest. If you don't know your topic of interest, it's very difficult. But at least, if you know broadly what is the study that you want to do, and if you know certain keywords which can help you, it will be useful. Otherwise, I can show you another way. By using the database itself, you can find out what are the most prominent keywords which can help us build further. So when I show you the hands-on, probably you can understand and maybe ask questions if you don't understand a particular one. So what is the flow going to be? I have a research topic and I want to do further research. So now I know my, a broad topic. And once I know a topic, then I'm just wondering which part of the the broad topic I should focus on. So I have to funnel it down to some, some specifics. So what I'll do is use the keyword search for existing data. Is there any existing research work done? Try to understand from the extracted keyword search as to what has already happened. Is there a gap? So if I understand that there is a gap, then I thoroughly check if this gap is true to some extent at least, and then see as to how I can build my work further, and then build my work and then send it to the publisher so that they undertake a peer review process. The experts, go through your work and see, okay, what have you done seems to be relevant or some value addition to the existing body of knowledge, and then they might accept or reject. If they accept, you are happy, you get a paper published, and that adds to your account forever. So that's how this entire process is. I'll send you this PPT, which you can see the flows already on the internet. If you see a Google search, you get all these things. But by doing a hands-on, I think that will be much more useful for you. So I'll straight away jump into doing a simple hands-on exercise also, so that you understand how to engage with the database. So before that, I'll also talk about certain databases and how to follow a particular process. Let's say you're using one of the databases like Scopus. You have entered a particular keyword and it has thrown out, let's say, a few thousands of documents. So if I've given on the screen, you can see one sample. The records identified through the database N equal to so and so. N means the number of papers or articles or samples that you got. So initially, let's say, assuming we got 2000 plus documents on a particular keyword. Now you have to filter it by refining it and saying, okay, I went through these papers and I find there are some duplicates, there are something which has some redundancy in the information, or something is incomplete and so on. And then when you filter, it might filter to, let's say, 60% of, or maybe 70 or 60 or 40% of the entire extract. And then now you want to say, okay, these are some clean documents. Now I'm going to go in depth. So what I'll do is I'll first read the abstract section, see the title, whether it relates to my topic of interest, and then what does the abstract suggest. So assuming that you would be researchers or maybe engaging with research papers, I would have gone directly, but then I will also assume that there might be some participants who may not be knowing much about research. They might be budding researchers. And just to give a gist for them, the abstract is expected to be a gist of the entire research work that you've done. That talks about what is the background or the purpose of your paper, and what are the research design or the methods that you have used to engage with this research. And then if you have used certain tools, techniques, or maybe a particular application or database, or how did you collect your data? Once you have done that, you're working with the data and engaging with certain processing of the data that you're collecting and finding some gaps, some studies, some knowledge. And what are your findings? And then you want to discuss it and say, okay, what is it contributing to the existing body of knowledge? And finally, also talking about, is there some gap which has not been addressed and could it be a future research direction? And that will help the other researchers who want to work on this to carry the work further. So abstract is expected to follow this flow where it talks about the purpose, the aim of the work, the tools used, the research design, and then what are your findings, what are the gaps, and then is there some future research direction. So this abstract that you read, you get some fair idea, okay, what is the gap, what is the work done, what are the useful components that I can use, and then from here you can move further. So title and abstract screen, once you have done the screening, I would suggest screening should be done by more than one researcher on the same content or maybe on the same set of database that you extracted, because that helps in improving the validity and reliability of your work. Why? Because if I am researcher A and I think these are the useful papers, this seems to be relevant. But when you give the same thing to another person from your same expertise or domain, they would see with a different lens and say, okay, I think there is some difference in what you say and what I say. So you want to understand, is there some inter-rater acceptance? So you can do this test and when both are rejecting, you should reject that particular paper which is of no use. And maybe work on only what is useful. That is how the N has reduced after purifying to final inclusion and exclusion. So once you have done your exclusion and you have included certain papers based on their relevance, then you work finally on the purified, the final number. Let's say initially it was 2023, and finally you found only 40 to 50 papers are relevant, and then you work on that. And now you dig deeper into those papers only and find out, okay, what are the studies, what is important, that what is the cream of this work, and how it can help me build the research work. And that is how this particular process of systematic literature review helps you to remove all the unwanted scrap or something which is irrelevant and only work with the quality cream of the entire knowledge. And I'm sure that this process is important, even mandatory and part of the research journey. So you need to engage whether you like or not, but then this will certainly help you to get quality work and then proceed further. You can also check out certain seminal work done by great people, and also the existing standards which you can use. One of the example is the PRISMA statement, which you can find online. There's a website link I've given at the bottom. You can check the PRISMA, the source that I've given. So you'll find certain useful guidance from these resources, which says, how do we undertake a scientific way of systematic literature review or the literature review. So if you see this flow, it clearly indicates that first you need to understand what are the previous studies. Once you have done that, you start identifying what is it contributing, what are the new studies that are reported in these papers or databases. And once you start filtering, I'm sorry, based on your removed your duplicate records or maybe something which is unsuitable to the work. And once you've screened all of them, and finally you find, okay, there's only this n number of papers which are useful. So you now work on it, undertake more in-depth analysis, critical evaluation, and then report in your document or your research paper, and then send it for a peer review and publication. So I suggest, since it's a paucity of time, you can check the PRISMA statement and other resources also, and this will help you to guide you as to how do I undertake a systematic literature review. While on the other hand, I will also do a small hands-on on the Scopus straight away, so that we don't waste time, and also you have a feeling of exactly what am I supposed to do. I hope you're familiar or should be familiar with these two important databases which I'm talking of. If I'm not wrong, I think most of you must have engaged with Google Scholar. Now, normally what people do is as a budding researcher, those who have free access to Scholar is free, but Scopus and Web of Science is more of institution subscribed or maybe paid kind of thing. And maybe if you're doing on an individual level, maybe it might be a bit costly. But then if you're working in some organization who have subscribed to these resources, like our university, we have the Scopus and the paid versions of access to Scopus and Web of Science also, and many other through our library portal. So as a teacher or a student, we have access to these databases, and that's how it helps us in undertaking research. So it's more of enablement by the institution. But of course, initially it could be a costly investment, but then over a period of time, you'll find it is very, very useful. To begin with, these are two important databases which I want to talk of. One is the Web of Science and the Scopus. Now I'll just show you as to how to use it. And in addition to these two databases, you must have heard of other databases like I talked of the Google Scholar, and there's the Ibisco host, there's this Gestor, then you have the Science Direct, LCA, and other components. Even in medical, you have something called the PubMed, and the engineering and technical or the technology oriented, you find IEEE access. So there are a host of things, but we want to understand what we should engage with. I would suggest Google Scholar is fine as far as doing some preliminary work. But if you want to do a high-end kind of study, published in top journals like ABDC Index, or maybe Q category, Q1, 2, 3, 4, you might be knowing. So if you can get out the high impact factor journals, then I think it attracts better citations, and it becomes very interesting to engage more as you get more citations with more paper publications and doing quality work. Even the institutions and appraisal systems, they would like to have teachers, students, researchers who can bring impactful research studies. So that's why it's better to engage with quality work with quality resources. And that's how Web of Science and Scopus seems to be useful to get quality work. So what I'll do is, let me know if you can see the screen where I'll be using the Scopus. Okay, so just to give you an example, we have a library portal where the university provides us access to different databases and journals and repositories, and that's how I can log in and get access to certain resources and make use in my research work. So assuming that you must have or will get or should get some kind of access, you should be able to have an account either created by the university or by your own account and access to these repositories. Now, I have logged in into the repository called the Scopus. To begin with, what I'll do is, in the chat box, I would request you to suggest few keywords which you are engaging with, or maybe a topic of interest, so that I'll take your example and then show you as to how to search for data in these Scopus. So can I see some keywords in the chat box? Is the chat box enabled for, okay, customers, I can see. Okay, Dr. Vaishnavi. Okay, so green marketing sustainability. Okay, so what I'll do is, assuming that you have your own keywords, let's start with one of them. To begin with, what I'll do is I'll just use this word called customer satisfaction. Now here we have to understand that customer satisfaction are two words. So satisfaction in itself could be a keyword and customer could be another keyword. So you might have keywords where you have single word or a phrase or a multiple string of keywords. Now we have to be very sure how to ask Scopus to understand this particular terminology or the keyword and give us relevant report relevant articles that are suitable to our keywords. So to start with, when you log into your Scopus, first thing that you have to do is go into search, click on search. I'll show you the start one. So once you do search, it is saying, what should I search for? Do you want to search for documents or authors or applications? So I can search for authors here. I can search for documents by clicking the document, or application means the institution, the university with whom a particular researcher is attached to. So let's say if a simple thing is if I ask for a particular author. So if I want to know some name, if any of one of you can give me one name as author, first name and your last name, anybody in your chat box. We need to be a bit quick so that okay, I'll use mine itself. This is my last name, Iyengar, and first name is Venkatesh. And I can also write that this particular person is from, let's say, Symbiosis, even if I don't know the entire full name. And then I go for hitting the search button. And the moment I hit search, it reports there's one author with his name from Symbiosis Institute of International Business. Click on the documents. You see certain documents which are listed in Scopus, indexed in Scopus, while you might have others in Google Scholar and all. And then you can check your documents. Same way you can know more about the researcher. Now, the second thing what we can do is, using certain keywords, I need to look out for what is the work that is existing. So let's say if I am using customer satisfaction as one of the chat has indicated. So what I'll do is I'll go for search, click on documents and say, I want that this particular keyword should appear somewhere in the, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, just a minute. Okay, I'll just take 5 to 10 minutes and give one hands-on. So what I'm going to do is, one is I can just write customer satisfaction, or if I know that it's going to report customer differently and satisfaction differently, that means each of these words in any of the documents. But I want that these both words should appear together. So I need to understand using Boolean algebra kind of thing. Boolean, if you understand what is Boolean, otherwise search the internet, and you have to use this as a inverted commas as a single string. And I say that check out for these particular keywords in the article abstract or keywords. And then once I say search, is going to report what are the papers that are available. And on the right side, you'll see all kinds of information. What is the title of the document? Who are the authors? Which year it was indexed or published? And then which journal? What is the page number or volume number and all? And whether this paper has a citation. So like this, now let's say this particular search term has given us 56,000 plus documents. But I see that, my God, this is too big for me to undertake a literature review. So what I'll do is, just by taking this one example, because we don't have much time, what I'll do is I'll try to do the refinement. I said that I want to understand which of these work is relevant. So what I'll do is straight away, I'll go for refined results, wherein either I can just put in a word over here and say, if this word appears in any of these 56,000 plus documents, then only show me those documents. So I can do that, or maybe I can use these various options available. Let's say one example that I want for all types of access papers, but I want to see only in the last 5 years. So what I'll do is I'll click the 5 years and say, okay, I want only these papers. Same way, I can go for 10 years, 7 years, what I want. Author name, you don't have to filter. Go to the subject area. If you think you want something which is relevant only to, let's say, finance or computer science or mathematics only, you can filter here. But if you're not, you'll get all the papers. Then I would like to not concentrate on some, other kind of material which may not be very good or enough for a peer reviewer or a journal to accept my work. Normally, journals like to see papers which are articles and review based. Even conference papers sometimes they don't like, but if you want, you can add. So normally article and review, these two are better, the cream, the best of all. And you can use this for your literature review. And of course, whether it's in press or final, that doesn't matter, or you can just restrict to final. But here, one thing that which I was talking of is what are the keywords which are relevant to this particular domain. So if I go in this keyword section, I'll say view all. See the kind of keywords it has reported in the existing documents. So if you see this top reported, a couple of them, these are some of the keywords which are relevant when we are talking about customer satisfaction. Or what you can do is you can also say, okay, some keywords I'm not interested in, and then deselect or select. Now this is part of the inclusion or exclusion criteria. Now depending on your research question and depending on what topics you would like to concentrate, focus on, you can select some of the keywords and then say limit to here at the bottom. Okay, so this is about the keywords. You know the types of keywords being used. You can look out for which are the most prominent one, which are the ones which have not been much worked on, could be a gap. It depends on how you want to look at it. And then you can have other filters like universities, which you want to check affiliations, or maybe particular country only. Let's say you want to know only the work done and reported as of India or China only, or US only. So you can select here. And then I want only those papers which are published in journals. I don't want conference proceeding, trade journals, and so on. Or maybe I might include something in books also if it is a good book. So like that. And then I don't want other languages. I say only English, papers in English. And then once I say limit to, it is going to report from 56,000 to only 2,728. Now, you can see the kind of query that it has considered and searched for you and reported. Now here you can report this particular string in your research paper and say, this is the kind of inclusion, exclusion, or the filtering that I've done and taken only the cream work. And from there, I'm going ahead with my systematic literature. I hope this is one part of it. The second part is you can now work further. Let's say you're finalized on these 2,728 documents. Now what you can do is select all, and then you can analyze this research result to see what kind of work has been done. So when you click on analyze search results, it will give you all kinds of graphs and data set. Let's say it is saying in the 5 years, this is the pattern in which, let's say, if I say 2019, 790 documents, and so on. It gives you a graph. Now you can see like this, how many documents in a particular year-wise trend is there. You can check out who are the authors who have worked on it, who are the top 10 authors, let's say, or 15 or 20. You get the entire breakdown. So this breakdown can be used to do a in-depth, a postmortem of the entire database and see what's the existing body of knowledge. So from here, you can understand who are the authors they have engaged with, which are the universities, top universities who have worked in that particular area, the topic of interest, the keyword. And then you can look out for which are the countries who have done most of the research work in this area. Here you see China and India and US and all done a lot of work in this area. Same way, we can use all these kinds of reported data set and then critically analyze each of them and see what is it talking about. So this is one of the methods which is also known as a bibliometric analysis. So here you do more about understanding how many papers, how many authors, who are they, which countries, citations, and so on. So this is one part of it. But when you're talking about systematic literature review, you want to go much further to understand what are the themes on which they have worked. So what I'll do is I'll have to use some more other parameters also, which will help me. Number one is I'll come back out of the analyzed search results and the earlier reported 2,700 documents. Now here what I'll do is I straight away go and sort on and say cited highest. So what it does for me is it tells me which are the top papers out of this set which has a lot of citation. Now what does citation tell us? That there are many people who are citing this paper. So there's something special in this paper, something useful. So we also want to engage with this paper and see what is there. So what I'll do is I'll check the abstract of that particular, the most cited paper, and read it and find out when they're talking about customer satisfaction. But then what are they talking of? So is it of use to my topic? So like this, I can filter out whether this document is acceptable to me or whether it should be, okay, it's not a way of good quality. It's not talking what I'm interested in. So you can filter like this by saying these are the documents and not something which I don't want. By reading the abstract, you'll get some idea. Otherwise, you'll have to read the paper by downloading this paper. Or maybe even what you can do is if I want a copy of this paper, either I get access if it is open access, or what I do is I go and, go for Scholar and straight away paste that particular paper and see if I can get access. Yes, you can see this, I can get access to this paper. So if I can just click here, download the document, PDF you have access, and then you can use this paper this way. So there could be some papers which are not available. It's on paid basis. Maybe you'll have to have a payment, you'll have to buy from them and so on. But then at least this repository gives me an idea of what kind of work is there, what has been done. I can filter it. I can engage with this particular content and then filter out and find out, is there some gap which can help me in doing my research work? So I would suggest you see some seminal work in terms of what are the steps I need to undertake, engage with the PRISMA document. Now, what did PRISMA talk about? Let's say if I talk about the PRISMA, okay, I'll show you a PDF. Okay, I have an expanded checklist downloaded from there. So PRISMA, how does it help me in my, this is the last part which I want to do because time is almost over. I'll just take 3 minutes and that's it. And I'll go for questions for 5 minutes. Okay, so this PRISMA document, it tells me what all should be there in a systematic literature review paper. So once I read this flow, I understand, okay, this is what I'm supposed to work on. So if you see first the title. So here you can see what is required. How should the title be, what it should represent and so on. Same way I can check out for abstract, rationale of the study. So I can report as to what my study, what is the rationale it is based on, you'll have to do some pre-study to understand. Then you set your objectives, you must report your objectives. Then you must say, what are the eligibility criteria for including certain papers? I talked of the inclusion, exclusion criteria. So based on that, you'll have to report. How did you filter it? How did you, include or exclude something? After this, you can report other, in the research design as to what is the strategy you have adopted. Is there some particular tools or techniques or methods you have applied? So once you have done this, you can report, okay, this is the selection process. This is the method I've applied. And then you start analyzing or collecting data on the topic of interest based on your research question. And then once you work with those data items, you can talk of what are the data items that you're considered and what is the analysis you have done, critical analysis. And then from that, is there some bias involved? Did you find some, lacuna in the existing study? And so on. Like this, you can report various components of the research and do the synthesis after you have analyzed all the documents. And once you report it, go for some discussion about what did you find. And once you do all that, straight away, you come down to your the result section. Result will try to connect between what was your research question or your objective of your study and what did you do and what did you find from your study. Is there some collaboration, some kind of relationship with the gap with the research question that you have thought of and what you have extracted. So once you discuss all this, you can come to certain conclusions and report that in your document, and also see if there is some gap which has not been addressed and suggest that as a future research direction. And that's how the other researchers can help in understanding the gap and studying further. So this is one such flow which can help you to say what should be reported in document, what is the flow right up to your last section. And then of course, I won't be talking about references, but you must be knowing about references in terms of referencing styles that is required. So the journals tell whether they want MLA format or APA. And that I think there could be some sessions where we can talk about the referencing styles, how to do, and that would be useful. So I hope this particular discussion helps you in understanding what am I supposed to do when I'm talking about systematic literature review or literature review and then review. I think just the other part would have been, if this was Scopus, the same thing I have to do in Web of Science, and it also gives me similar kind of access and filtering and all. And once you do that, you have to just report in your paper. The only thing is a matter of access to Web of Science. It also gives me, let's say, if I engage, let's say, emotional intelligence, it also gives me on the left side, if you see, the same kind of right side papers, citations, all those data, and left side the filtering section. Once you refine this and select the final set of papers, you're done with it. I hope with this I would like to end and ask questions, answer to questions if any. Let's stop sharing in case there's a question or anything. Have the participants access to audio? I mean, can they ask the question? Hello? Deepa ma'am? Is my audio not? Hello? Yeah, Deep. Is Deepika ma'am there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to know if Deepa ma'am or somebody is there.
Deepa ma'am, I mean.
Okay, so
Yeah, she's there.
So I have 2 to 5 minutes if somebody wants to ask a question.
Okay, sir. We shall wait for it.
Yeah, but have you given access to them for audio? And can they speak? Or somebody can put your question
they
on
can,
the chat box.
They can put it in the chat box, sir.
Yeah. See, actually, systematic literature review or this process, even though they seem to be something limited, but it requires few days and months. It's not in 1 hour. So 1 hour we can't cover actually everything about systematic literature. Certainly, I think the discussion that we had probably that could help you into plunging into starting with systematic literature. So is there a question that is in your mind which you want to ask the participants especially?
Actually, the participants are supposed to post their clarification in the chat box, sir.
But I don't see anything on the chat box.
Yes, sir, there is no clarifications in the chat box. I just saw the chat box.
Okay, so Do you want me to discuss any particular topic or any particular points, or is it okay to close down?
Can the participants respond, please?
Yeah, Lena Thakur has raised it.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So my son is there. He has been into research. He's a school student. He has done some research topic in the science project that has been done together with his teacher. Now, can he file the research paper? Now, all the systematic according to what you showed us. So that has been done. We are like happy the things, the table which you showed, according to that, the systematic plan has been adopted under the guidance of the teacher. Now, once this is done, now after that, how can they file their research paper? Moreover, he being the minor, can he file it?
Okay. So, see, first of all, when you submit a particular research work, a piece of work to any particular journal, so I'm sure that you'll have to engage in finding out which is the journal that you want to actually submit to. So you can submit at the same time to more than one journal at a time. So unless they reject, suppose you submitted to journal A, and if they have rejected, then only you can go for the other one. So that is the basics on which it works. Second thing is, let's say if your son has developed the research paper, and the teacher is supposed to be a guide to your student or the son, your son, and if that person has evaluated the work and says, okay, this is fit to be published in a journal as far as we are concerned, so that particular person, the teacher, can submit on their own account. However, they should report that the main author is the child. Okay, but it again depends on the journal as to depending on the work, whether they would accept a particular student with a particular age group to be. But I think it's more about the research rather than the person itself. So that the corresponding author being the teacher would be authorized to submit the research work done by anybody. That's not a problem. It also depends on whether that teacher is saying that that particular person is the main author or co-author, and there are so many other issues. But they can submit to a journal. All you have to do is log into the journal, create a register to any journal, create an account. It gives you the process of submitting your document by attaching certain components of your research work. And once you submit it, it gives you a code, and then it tracks. You can track it over a period of time to find out what is the comment, has it been accepted, is there a rejection or a minor rectification and resubmission, so on. So there's an entire online systems which work, and the teacher can submit. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. We were just confused regarding whether to go for the patent process or for this research paper.
1 minute, are you talking about patent or talking about research paper?
Sir, I was talking about the research because patent takes a very long time. That is the reason we decided to go for the research. So that is the reason the question was put up.
Okay, if it is a patent, if you think your work is so unique, whether it's a child or anybody, work can be unique. So if you think it's something special, precious, so there is a process through any of these universities or organizations who are patenting. It is normally submitted through the institution. So let's say if your student, if the child is studying in a particular school or college, and they're under some university, so the university can file, the institution can go ahead with the process of patenting, and it has its own process. There is an ethical process, there is a validation process, and then the process, some legal aspects of it. That's the only thing.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Check out for the department. There will be a department who's handling the patent. IP. Yeah. So, any other question, please? Feel free to ask. I mean, there's no problem. I think 2-5 minutes, and then we can close down. It's 2:07, and maybe by 2:10 we can close. Even though we have exceeded by 10 minutes. So, Deepa ma'am, I think there is no response, or maybe it's actually we've got between lunchtime, so many might have either had lunch and sleeping. it's a difficult time.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you so much.
I'm sure that, you know, see, actually, this time is not enough. It
I
takes
understand.
literature review, you know, when we engage, it takes, you know, few days and months actually to really work out as to what we want to include actually in our work and whether it will be of some acceptable level. Otherwise, it's not a, I'm sure it's not a 1 hour discussion at all. Yes, ma'am. So I'm done. So thank you. Thank you for this
Thank you so much,
opportunity.
sir. Thank you so much for your valuable presence, and your content which you have shared is really useful for all the research scholars. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I'll hand over. See, actually, there's something called basic, something a little, you know, advanced. And first of all, I'm not sure about the audience as to what category they are. But then 1 hour is not enough. It's only for a starter, I think.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much, and wish all the researchers all the best, all the academicians and whoever are engaged with research. And ma'am, thank you very much. Also convey my thanks in regards to Dr. Padmavati ma'am for this wonderful opportunity. Hope to engage with much more critical work than what this is. This is very basic.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So shall I log out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Good day.